Hakadosh Boker Or Mesechet Gitin Daf Memvav Amud Aleph 46a1. If you remember, we were talking about in the Gemara. The Gemara comes and the Gemara is making a din in the Mishnah where it says, Amar Rav Yosef ben Rav Nachman Vehu She'amalla. When do you say that you're not allowed to return your wife if you divorce her? Only if you told her during the time of the divorce that Mishum Shemra Ani Motziech, that he's taking her out because of Shemra, or Mishum Neder Ani Motziech, or he's taking her out because of a Neder. Right? Why? Kasavar, because of Nachman holds. Tamamai, the reasoning why is because of what? He says, Mishum Kilkula, because of Kilkul. What does it mean because of Kilkul? At the end of the day, maybe the husband will come, right? And he will be Mekalkelota. Why? Because he's going to come. He's going to divorce her. And after come, right? And he's going to divorce her, right? He's going to come and he's going to say, I'm divorcing you because of this. So if he comes, right, and he's going to tell her like this, so matzi mekalkela. So then he could be mekalkelota, right? Vilo, but if he didn't say anything, lo matzi mekalkela. So then he cannot come and he cannot ruin her. Okay, fine. Ika da'amri. Now we're going to change. Remember, whenever there's an ika da'amri, we change. That was which is written right above. And now the Ika Da'amri says as follows. Amar Rav Yosef bar Minyume Rav Nachman. Says Rav Yosef bar Minyume in the name of Rav Nachman. Tzarich shiomalla hevi yoda'at shemishum shemra ani motziech mishum neder ani motziech. So he comes and he says the exact opposite. When he's giving the get, you have to say the reason. Meaning, what was the first one? The first shita was Rav Yosef bar Minyume says the name of Rav Nachman. When do we say it's a sulach ziret ishtecha? If you come and you tell her mishum shemra mitziech or mishum neder mitziech, why? Because of kilkula. Because if you're going to come and you're going to say, right, because of that, maybe be'emet, what's going to happen is he's going to say that I only divorced you, only if be'emet, right? That means I only divorced you because I thought be'emet was good. But if it's not going to be true, really be'emet, I'm going to take you back. And then the second, right, husband that he just took her was incorrect. Why? Because I just know the first divorce. The first divorce, Kilo, was al Tanai. Because he comes and he says, I only divorced you because of Shemra. Meaning, Bemet, if she was still a virgin and she wasn't fooling around, she never fooled around, that he wouldn't have divorced her. So if he wouldn't divorce her, now he just ruins the get. So therefore, it's going to be a problem. But in the Ika de Amri, now he's saying the exact opposite of what? Some people say, Yosef ben Menuma comes and he says, you have to say, Tzarich shiomalla. You have to say during the time of the giving over the get, you should know that I'm taking you out because of Shemra. You should know that I'm taking you out because of a neder. Says why? Because this lashon is mashma that even if he didn't say that, he's not allowed to take her back. Nevertheless, it was like a takana that he still has to say it. Meaning the rabbis come and say, listen, no matter what's the reason, you're not allowed to take her back. But we still want you to say it. Now the question is why? Why do we want you to say it? So says the Gemara, Kamar, the Kasavar he holds, Tama Mai, what's the reasoning why they said that you're not allowed to take her back? It's a knas. Right? Because we don't want Benot Yisrael to come and to start being promiscuous, whether it's going to be in Arayot or to be in Nadraniot, to be women that are just making the Darim right, left, and center. Right? And saying Nishba, all these are Shavuot. No. Because of that, we want them to say that. So therefore, people knows. So people know in order to embarrass her. In order that people will come and people will embarrass her. What does that mean? What does it mean, levaisha? Right? Levaisha means in order to embarrass her for her actions. Tanya kelishna batra, the Tanya kelishna kama, Tanya kelishna kama, the Tanya kelishna batra. So we have one braita that goes according to the first lashon, another braita that goes according to the last lashon. Tanya kelishna kama. What was the lishna kama? It says Amar Bibi says mipnema amru amotzet ishto mishum shemra lo yachzir. What is the reason why we said that if somebody's going to divorce his wife because of Shemra, he's not going to take her back? Mishum neder lo yachzir, and because of neder lo yachzir, shema telech v'tinaseh le'acher. Maybe what's going to happen is she's going to get married to somebody else. Then imtzu dvarim badaim, right? And then the words are going to become right. Sheket. What does that mean? It was false. Yeah. And then what happens? Right? And then I'll remember to do with false is to do with the Shemra, to do with the neder. For sure, she made the neder. It just means that the Chacham came and he annulled the neder. right? So he says V'yomar, right? And then he says V'yomar, and he's going to say, if I would have known that they could have done such a thing, if I would have known that really it was not true, that you're not parutz berayot, tutza berayot, if I would have known that the nedarim was going to be mutar, I wouldn't have. Even if they would have paid me hundreds of dollars, I wouldn't have divorced you. So then what happens? So it comes out that he just annulled the get, and therefore the children are going to be mamzerim. And therefore we tell him, you should know, somebody's going to take out his wife because of a shemra, it's not allowed to. Why? Because basically we're telling him this is a one-way door. Meaning you cannot come and annul it. Okay, and by not coming and annulling it, right, we don't know. By the way, you should know that even until today, we have something similar. What's something similar? Something similar is that the Bedin will always try that they settle their civil, we're going to say their rights or their divorce, right? Or even if it's not civil, it could be done through a Bedin, but it has to be done, their money aspect should be resolved before the divorce. Right? Why? Because if they're not going to do it beforehand, what happens is that afterwards he could say, you know what? If I would have known that this is what she's doing to me now, I wouldn't have given her the get.
So what?
And therefore what? And therefore that would have canceled the get. Because if right now you're coming and you're saying that it would depend on something else, it could actually cancel the get. So for what happens? So we come and we say, because of that, this is the takana over here, that no matter what, you cannot go back. You cannot go back. So therefore what happens? We come and we tell the person, you're taking her out because of Shemra. You're taking her out because of Neder. You should know the second that you divorce, you can never go back because of this. Even if it comes out that it's false. Are you sure what you're doing? Right? Why? That was a takana. What do you mean a takana? Because really, Be'emet, if it was not because of this takana, he would be able to take her back. He would annul the get. Right? Because it had to be done by Lev Shalem. Because if the get was batel, and she got married to somebody else. בדיוק.
ולבטל רק עם דברים. No, I can't solve the get now.
רק עם דברים אתה יכול לבטל.
It's too easy.
Why is it too easy?
There's a whole process to do the get, to give the get.
It was a mistake.
Don't do the mistakes, too bad. You cannot cancel it.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
בן אדם עושה...
So now we're going to the second Braita. Remember that according to Shitat, the second Braita, according to Rav Yosef Ben Yum in the name of Rav Nachman, you have to say during the time of giving over the get the reason. Now, why is it that you have to say that? Because you can never take her back, which means the children will never be mamzerim. Okay, which means that even if it's not emet, you can never take her back. So that's why I don't understand what people go, no, you still have, again, one more time. According to the first reason, her children will become mamzerim. If she gets married to somebody else, he could annul everything. So we tell him, shtok. Why? Because if you give a reason, you could retract, children could become mamzerim. We don't want reasons. It's unconditional. Come on. According to the second shita, it will never retract. It will never be there. So therefore, right, he comes and he says, so 1 second. So then why do you have to say then the reason? He says, you know why? We want to prove a point. We want that other women should not learn from her. The only way to learn to do that is only one way, to publicize it. Right? What does that mean? The ones that are left over, you want them to listen and to be afraid. How do you do that? Only one way. I come and I do it publicly. Right? It's called public shaming, by the way. But what's the concept? The concept is that everyone should know. Now, according to the Shita, it's the second Shita. There are two different Shitot. Aleph, Bet. According to Aleph, you could really retract. According to Bet, you cannot retract. Okay? And that obviously is the difference between the two different opinions. So says the Gemara one more time. Tanya, we learned in the Braita, Klishna Batra, like Mishnah Batra. Right? I hope you understand. Right? He says, Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosef. Says Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosef. Why did they say why did they come and they say this is the shita shniya? Why do we say, right, if somebody's going to be motzi tishto mishum shemra lo yachzid mishum neder lo yachzid shelo yiyu benot Yisrael prutzo barayot, right, uvenedarim lefichach omrim lo, and therefore we tell them that what emor la hevi yodat mishum shemra nitziach or mishum neder nimutziach. So therefore, by saying that, you're actually coming and saying we already know that. So we want that people should know it. People should know this is the reason why I'm divorcing her. Why? Because of this. Maybe it was a mistake. And because you know what? I'm going to tell you a secret. Even if it was a mistake, it doesn't matter. You still can't get married to her. So therefore, you're not going to be mekalkelota. The benea will not be mamzerim. Nothing will happen, right? You're not being mekalkelota. Ma mekalkelota. Anyway, you can't take her back. You can't do anything. And if she got married to somebody else, she got married to somebody else. What does that have to do with you? Right? You can never be mekalkel in that way. So therefore, the only reason is to tell other women, don't do this. How do you do that? I come and say the reason. Okay? Fine. 2 dots. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol neder sheyadu bo rabim. Any neder which is known to the public, and that's why he's divorcing her, lo yachzid. You can't take her back. But if they don't know about it, so yachzid, then you can take her back. Right? Now, obviously, we have to understand that according to Shittat of Yehuda, the reason why is because if somebody's going to be noder barabim, there's no afara, which means there's no chashash for kilkul. Why? Because even if it's going to be right that the shalat tida or not has nothing to do with it. Okay, so he comes and he says like this. Amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, says Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. My tamad Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda? He says dichtiv. It says in the pasuk, "Velo yikum bnei Yisrael ki nishbeu lahem nesiei haedah." He says like this: Bnei Israel, it came out that the Givunim, they made a mistake to Bnei Israel. And they lied that they're not umot of Eretz Canaan, right? And therefore, Bnei Israel did not kill them, right? Because of the Shavua to the Nesiya Edah. Okay? Now, it comes out, right, that Ki'ilu, right, that you cannot permit this neder, right, or the Shavua, right, which was done barabim, because if not, the Bnei Israel should have been permitting, right, the neder. Everyone understood what happened? One more time. You had the Givonim. If right now you had people that they were part of the 7 umot, but Bnei Yisrael should have come and they should have killed them. Lo techayeh kol neshama. You're not allowed to let them live. So you have to kill them out. What happened? They came and they went and they said, listen, we're not here. If you want, I'll read you the footnote. He says the Givonim were the Chivi, right? Eretz Canaan. Now, since they were afraid of Bnei Yisrael, they came with other clothing, right? As if that they were coming from a different place. And they say that they came from a very far off place. They weren't from Eretz Canaan. So therefore, they wanted him to make a treaty. So Yehoshua came and he made a treaty. He said, you know what? Let's make a peace treaty, a pact. What is it? We're going to let you live. I don't know about the place. He says, V'nishbeu. They went and they swore, right? And now when they came out and they found out that it was not true, Bnei Yisrael did not kill them. Why didn't Bnei Yisrael come and kill them? Because of the Shavua. They didn't kill them. They did not kill them. Why? Because of the Shavua. So one more time. They were afraid of the Jews. They knew the Jews were going to come in and they were going to kill everybody. So what happened? They came with clothing that was looked very old. And they went and they said, listen, you know what? You should know, right? We're not, how do you call this? Which one? Yeah. So he said, listen, we're not this nation, so therefore don't kill us out. So he comes out, okay. Shavua, treaty, no problem. Well, it was false. So the question is, if they made this mistake, so right? It was a mistake. So why don't they just do hatarat? They have to do hatarat neder. And they do hatarat, right? They should do hatarat, and then they kill them out. So he comes and he says, you see from here, right? You see from here that the reason why is because obviously it doesn't help, right? So that's a shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Meaning shita of Rabbi Yehuda is that once it was done barabim, it doesn't help hatarat nedarim. And therefore here, even though they should have done Atar and Nedarim, then they should have killed them out. You can't. It was a Neder, which was done Barabim. So that's why they didn't kill them out. V'Rabbanan, but according to the rabbis, that they obviously come and they don't hold of this, because they hold that you can't make Afara Nedarim on this. Hata mi chala shevua ilavayu klal. Whoever said that there was chala shevua at all? Kevan damru lehu, since they told them, meretz rechoka banu, that we came from a far off place, velo ba'u, and they didn't come from a far off place, there's no shivua that was on them at all. So why didn't they kill them then? So that way the people would have not come and say that they were over on a shivua, then that's going to cause a chilul Hashem. Right? Which means it was a completely different reason. Really, there was no shivua whatsoever. Right? And if there's no shivua, you didn't even need to do hatarat shivua, according to Chachamim. So okay, fine. So you didn't need to do hatarat shivua. So why didn't they kill them? This is because of Chilul Hashem. That's the only reason. Not because of anything else. Okay. It's fine. So says the Gemara, V'kama Rabbim. So how much behemet is considered a rabim, right? That if you're going to be noder barabim, right, and there's not going to be a farah. Rav Nachman says, shlosha. 3 people is already enough, right? Rabbi Yitzchak Amar, asara. Rabbi Yitzchak says 10 people. It's not going to be 3 people. It's going to be 10 people. Okay. Rav Nachman Amar shlosha. Rav Nachman says 3 people. Why? He says he actually learns it from a pasuk to do with a zava. Remember what's a zava? A woman that she has a sickness, and the sickness is that after a regular period, she has the sickness that she's seeing blood. Okay, so that's called zava. So that means she's seeing blood not at the proper time. Okay, so she saw her period, doesn't matter from 1 day to 7 days. And then after that, within the next 11 days, she came and she saw again. Doesn't matter when it was during those days, she saw again. That's called a zava. So if a woman comes and she sees a zava, v'isha ki azuv zov dama yamim rabim lo nidata, timai. So now it comes and says like this. Yamim, when it says yamim, it says yamim rabim. Yamim. Yamim is minimum how much? Shtaim. Why? Because yamim is plural. Right? Lashon rabim. Once it's plural, it has to be minimum 2. When it says rabim, so how much is rabim? Minimum 2. Shlosha. Right? That means 3. So therefore, just like over there, yamim rabim means 3 days. So too, when you're going to say that it has to be bifnei rabim, a neder, which is done bifnei rabim, it means 3. Right? Because if you're going to say yamim means 2, and rabim means 3, so the terminology of rabim means 3. So if I'm going to say a neder, which is done by rabim, does not have a farah, so it's going to be 3. Okay? Fine. Rav Yitzchak Amar, Rav Yitzchak Amar, asara. What does it mean now, asara? 10 people. Tichtiv, as it says in the pasuk, ki nishveu lahem nesiyeh edah. We know that edah is always going to be 10 people. So if edah is 10 people, so to here when it says rabim, it has to be 10 people. Because here, it wasn't just stam that it was a neder done by rabim. It was a neder done by nesiyeh ha'edah. Edah is 10 people. So a neder of rabim that does not have a farah is only in front of 10 people. Okay. Next.
אז זה המקור של התרת נדרים, 3 צריך להבין.
Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir comes and he says, Kol neder shetzarich, any neder that a person needs to do, right? Which means, it says Rabbi Lazar, right? Lo asur zeh mipnei zeh. What does that mean? Tani, we learned in a Braita. Rabbi Lazar Omer, Rabbi Lazar says, Lo asur bimkom neder tzarich, ela mipnei she'eno tzarich, which means we're not talking about that we didn't prohibit a neder where you need a tarat chacham, only because of the neder does not need a tarat chacham, which means in a place where you need a heter chacham, there's no tzorech in this takana meikar adin, and they only made a gezerah only in order to be mechazek and ma'amid the takana in a place where you do not need a heter chacham. So b'maika mipalgeh, what exactly is the machloke between them? Rabbi Meir Savar, Rabbi Meir holds Adam rotzeh shetitbazeh ishto bevedin. A person will want that his wife, meaning not that he wants, but he doesn't care if his wife will have to go to a bedin to ask for a tarat nedarim. And therefore the husband could come and be toen that if he would have known that you could do a tarat nedarim, he wouldn't have divorced her, right? So in order to stop this, Chachamim say, asur lachzira, if you went and you divorced her because of a neder that has a tarat chacham. Okay. Bilazar savar, en adam rotzeh shetitbazeh ishto bevedin. A person will never want, right, his wife to come and to do that in order to be matira neder. So therefore, he was going to be megarsha, even if he would have known that the chacham could be matir the neder. And therefore, in such a neder, you cannot say if you would have known, because it wouldn't have helped anyway. Even if you would have known that you could do a tarat nedarim, you don't want that your wife is going to go to a bedin to start coming and saying all these things in front of bedin. Zebusha. You understand? Like it's like you're taking out the dirty laundry. Kilo that your wife has to go to think. Everyone knows, what type of wife does this guy have? So kilo, that means even if you would have been able to get out of it, זה לא טוב בשביל הבן אדם. הוא לא רוצה את זה. Okay? Fine. Next, אמר רבי יוסף רבי יהודה, says רבי יוסף רבי יהודה, there was a story בצידן. What does it mean there was a story in Sidan? He says, my Tana diktani maaseh. What is this exactly that the Tana is coming and telling us, right, a story, right, about the neder of the woman? How does this help out in the Mishnah? Meaning like this, obviously, right, if the Mishnah is bringing us a story, it's a chayav להיות קשור. It has to be somehow connected. It's not just somebody that's coming to be mekasher between Aleph and Bet, right? And one thing and another thing, right? Yeah, it has to be 100% connected. Yeah. How is it going to be connected? Right? He says, so my Tana diktani mate, says the Gemara, He said it has to be that we're lacking part of the Mishnah. And this is the way that it is. But what are these words? He. What does it mean? When she was the one that made the neder. Aval nadar ihu, but if he was the one that made the neder, yachzir. He's mutar lachzir otam. Right? You understand the meaning that who's the one that's instigating you? Is it she's the one that's doing it? Or is it he's the one that's doing it? Meaning, if right now she was the one that did it, that's what we're saying. But when do we say that the husband is not allowed to come and not allowed to do this? That's when kishenadra he. And therefore, he took her out because of her neder. But nadar ihu, but if he was the one that made the neder, right, to be megareshet ishto, yachzir, he's allowed to take back his wife. There was also a story in Yehuda that there was somebody in Sidon, right? That he said that somebody came and he tells his wife, he comes and he says, everything's going to become prohibited if he's not going to divorce her. And then he divorced her. He says, no, you're allowed to. Why? Because it's tikkun haolam, right? What does it mean exactly? Kunam exactly. What's a surah with this kunam exactly? So Ravuna says, Beomer, Yasru kol perot shebaolam alai meni migarshech. A person comes and he says, everything is going to become prohibited, right? If he's not going to divorce her. So therefore he comes and he says, when a person comes and he says, Kunam perot alai meni migarshech, the pirush is that all the perot shebaolam are going to be like me, like a korban. He's not going to divorce her. And therefore, because of that, it's going to be chal. So because it's going to be chal in such a case, the fact that he came and he had to divorce her, we're going to say, you know what? You could come and you could take her back. Why? Because of tikkun haolam. Okay? Fine. 2 dots. So the rabbis came and he said, you're allowed to take her back. Well, pshita, obviously. Why? Why are you going to say it's going to be asur? Right? At the end of the day, right? Why is it going to be asur? It says, he says, you're allowed to take her back. Why? Right? Whereas this is going to be in the story, yeah? So he said, pshita, right? That was the Gemara I was going to say. Pshita, so he says like this. Says the Gemara, pshita, it's obvious, right? Ma'u the tema, I would have thought to say, right? Ligzor, maybe shum Rabbi Natan, maybe should make Zirav Rabbi Natan. The time was learned to write there. Do you know if you're going to make a neder? Remember we learned this in Nederim. You make a neder. What did you just do? You built a bama. Right? What was a bama? Personal barbecue. You remember? Now during the time when it's prohibited, you already had the Bet HaMikdash. Right? You're going to be mekayim the neder. So if you brought a korban, right? Which means if you made a full avera. So therefore, if you right now you made a neder and you are not mekayim, so fine. But now you're going to become a margil et atzmecha benedarim. Just like you're going to be bonei bama, and then you're going to bring a korban. So therefore, I would have thought to say that the person that made the neder, he has to divorce his wife, right? Why? It's like a knas. We don't want him to go back to his wife. Because what are you doing? You're going to start making the darim and then getting out of it? Like, what are you trying to do? Kamashvaran comes to teach that we don't make this knas. We don't make this knas, and the chachamim come and say, you're allowed to go back to her. No problem. What is the tikkun haolam? Tikkun haolam. My tikkun haolam, what's the tikkun haolam exactly over here? So he says, Amar Rav Sheshat. Rav Sheshat says, you're right. It's a reisha. It's on the reisha. Which means the reason why you're not allowed to take back your wife and you're megarsha mishum shemra mishum neder is because of tikkun haolam. That's the tikkun haolam. Ravina says, no. Leolam ha-seifa. Really, by we're talking about the seifa. What was the seifa of the Mishnah? On the story of Tzidan. This is what it means to say. En bezu mipnei tikkun haolam. Meaning, in this case, you do not have tikkun haolam, and which is going to be asur lachzira. And therefore, the lashon of the chachamim was vetiru lachzira mipnei shehir. There's no problem of tikkun haolam. That's why it's going to be mutar. So there's a machloka whether it's going on back on the reisha or the seifa. If it's going on the reisha, it's a reason why you're not allowed to get married. You're not allowed to take her back. If it's going on the seifa, it's a reason why you are allowed to take her back. But there's no tikkun haolam. There's no problem of tikkun haolam. Okay, fine. Mishnah on Memvav Mubet 46b says a Mishnah. Hamosi et ishto mishum ailonit. If a person comes and he gives a get to his wife because she's an ailonit. Okay, which means that he didn't know that she was an Ailonit when he got married to her, but now it already became Bahul, right, that she's an Ailonit. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo yachzir, right, which means he's never allowed to take her back. right? Which means that what happens now, this is the case that I told you before. You remember we were just speaking about it 2 seconds ago. And I said, why can a person come and he say, you know what, he's divorcing her because she's sterile. And all of a sudden, because if he says those words, if she comes and gets married to somebody else and she has children, they're going to become mamzerim now. He's going to say, the only reason why he divorced her was because of she was sterile. Now that she's not sterile, but that wasn't, it's not true. So he comes and he says, so because of that, lo yachzir. According to Shittat Yehuda, never allowed to return. Doesn't matter. The second he divorces her because of Eilonit, Kaddish. Says the Gemara, Chachamim say, yachzir. You're allowed to return her. We're not going to suspect for kalkala or anything like that. Niset le'acher vayula bani memenu v'itovat ktuvata. What happens right now if she got married and she has children from the second husband, and now she's asking the ketubah from the first husband?
She should shut up and
בדיוק,
so that it doesn't cancel.
בדיוק, על בסיס מה, בדיוק.
She's asking for the ketubah from the first husband.
שזה יחזיר אותה.
Yeah? Why is she asking ketubah from the first husband? She didn't get a ketubah?
אמרנו את זה בזה, למדנו.
If the wedding was taut because she was lonely, she doesn't get the ketubah.
Which means like this. If right now, when she got divorced, when she got divorced the first time around, right? He divorced her. Does she get a ketubah? No. She's an Eilonit.
Yeah.
Right? Now what happens?
למה, לא ניתן פרוטקשן?
לא, אם הסיבה היא לא זה.
הסיבה זה בגללה, זה לא בגללו.
What if she's not an Eilonit?
היא אמרה לו.
זה Eilonit, he doesn't have any feminine.
בדיוק.
אז אמרתי לה,
Same
נקודה.
down.
אם היא
She's
עבדה.
sterile, she doesn't get it.
ככה יוצא.
אז לא מגיע.
אני לא מקבל.
Eilonit does
אבל
not.
אחרי שהוא...
אבל אם היא אמרה לו, אני...
So what happens is like this. So Eilonit does not get a ketubah. She gets married to somebody else, and now she has a child. So now she comes, and she goes back to the first husband and says, give me the ketubah. So what happens? Says the rabbi.
If she did a new treatment that does not exist.
Okay, yeah, that's something else. It's something else. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda, Omer la, right? What are you going to tell her? Shtikutech yafeh midiburech. It's always better to keep quiet than to talk. Always. Right? Yafeh ashtika. Yeah? Siyag la chokhmah shetika. What does that mean? Exactly. Sheba al taseh. Yeah? What does that mean? Meaning, it's always better. You have to be quiet, right? So what does that mean? He says, if you're going to start talking too much, you're going to make your children mamzerim. So they tell her, take the key, put it, write it down.
יכול להיות שבשבילה זה דיל, יש הרבה כסף, לא פעמים.
Nobody will ever do that. Yeah, because she loses her ketubah from the first husband and the second husband. Her children are mamzerim, and she can't go back to the first husband. She doesn't go back to the second husband. It's not that simple.
Go back to the second one.
Sure not. Because if she says the Gemara, Lemeimra, are you going to tell me that Rabbi Yehuda chayish lekilkula? Are you going to tell me now that Rabbi Yehuda does suspect for kilkul, because maybe she's going to get married to somebody else, and then the first, the first husband's going to say no, and then he's going to take her back if he only because that he divorced her because of the Eilonit and everything, and the rabbis are the ones which are not choshesh lekilkula, right? That means the rabbis do not suspect for such a thing. We learned the exact opposite. Why? We learned in the previous Mishnah. We learned in the previous Mishnah. If a person comes and he divorces his wife because of Shemra, or Mishum Neder lo yachzir, or because of Neder he's not allowed to take her back, Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol Neder sheyadu bo rabim, any Neder that everyone knows about, lo yachzir, shelo yadu bo rabim, if nobody knows about it, yachzir, alma, you see from here, the exact opposite. Rabbanan, the rabbis are the one which are chayish lekilkula, right? And the Rabbi Yehuda is not the one that's chayish lekilkula. So what are you saying by us then? It doesn't make sense. So answers the Gemara, you're right. Amar Shmuel April. You have to switch it, right? So which means you have to switch the shitot in the Mishnah, and therefore you have to afuch. Yeah, b'diuk afuch. Yeah. So he says, and the Chachamim come and they say lo yachzir, and Rabbi Yehuda omer yachzir. Yeah, yachzir. Fine. The Hamidikani Seifa, that which was in the Seifa. He said le'acher vayula bani memenu. Right now she got married to somebody else, right? And she has children. And she's asking for a ketubah. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, he told her, you're going to tell her, meaning, Omerla is the first husband could tell her, so he says, you also have to switch this one as well, which means that also this you have to be gores, that the Chachamim are the ones that are saying, that means in the first Mishnah it's Chachamim, and the second Mishnah is also these words, we're switching both Mishnayot. So says the Gemara, why are you saying that? Amar Abaye, Abaye says, Lolam lo tepuch, don't switch anything around. Rabbi Yehuda be'ahi savala Rabbi Meir ve'savala Rabbi Elazar, right? B'tzarich, right? Sorry, 1 second. Well, it means like this. He comes and he says like this. When we're going to say now that you're not going to switch it around, it means you're leaving the Mishnah the way that they are. So he comes and he says this. In the Chashash of the Kilkul in the Reish of our Mishnah, in that case that somebody's taking out Mishum Neder, he holds like Rabbi Meir and he holds like Rabbi Elazar, which means that when you need a Shelat Chacham Le'atir, he holds like Rabbi Elazar, right? That a person does not want that his wife is going to become embarrassed in a Bedin. And therefore, the husband cannot say, if I would have known. Because even if you would have said, if I would have known you could do a Tarat Nedarim, you don't want your wife to be mitbazeh bebedim. So therefore, if you don't want, so it doesn't matter whether you knew or you didn't know. It doesn't matter. And when we're talking about a case where you do not need a chacham to be matir, savala Rabbi Meir, knows like Rabbi Meir. Shekol adam yodea shebal mefer. Everyone knows that the husband does Tarat Nedarim, and therefore the husband cannot say, I didn't know you could do a Tarat Nedarim. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows a husband could do a Tarat Nedarim to his wife. So therefore, because of that, it's a knas because of the prutzot and the nedarim. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. But Amar Rava says, you have the Rabbi Yehuda, Kasha, right? So he says, the Rabbi Yehuda, it's a question. You do have a stira between both the Mishnayot, but the Rabbanan la Kasha. But okay, well, you're going to tell me now it's not a question on Rabbanan to Rabbanan. At the end of the day, you only answer the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. One more time. Abaye just came and he said, Lolam lo tepuch, and Rabbi Yehuda, he holds this. So you answered up the contradictions between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbanan, you saw the stira. El Amarava, but rather Rava says, the Rabbi Yehuda lakashia, kideshanina. Meaning like this, you're right. What Abaye just answered, I agree with that. And let's answer up Rabbi Yehuda. What about Chachamim? The Rabbanan milokashia, man Chachamim, who's Chachamim? Rabbi Meir. It's Shitat Rabbi Meir. The Amar Ba'inan Tnai Kafur. According to Shitat Rabbi Meir, you always need a Tnai Kafur. What does it mean in Tnai Kafur? If this is going to happen, so and so. And if it does not happen, so and so. Meaning it's not enough. A one condition. You have to say the positive and the flip side, right? The opposite. You have to say this way and that way. So he comes and he says, so what are we dealing with over here? He didn't make a kafur t'nai, which means he just said, he only said, I'm taking you out because you're an Ilonit. He didn't say that if you're not an Ilonit, you're not divorced. He didn't make that t'nai kafur. He didn't do that. So because of that, right? Because of that, he comes and he says, it's going to chal l'gerushin even without a t'nai. Because there was no t'nai. According to Rabbi Meir, you need a double t'nai. Okay. Memvav bet on the bottom. Next Mishnah. Okay? Hamocher et atzmo ve'banav lo'odeh kochavim. Imagine somebody sells himself and his children, right, to like slaves to Ovdei Kochavim, and podinoto. We never redeem him. Aval podim et habanim la'achar mitat avihem. But after the father dies, we redeem the children. Okay? Obviously, you're going to probably say, yeah, it's probably because he did it to himself. Right? But let's see. Okay? Here he says it's in order that people shouldn't come and start selling themselves to the goyim and then keilu, redeem us. We're sold to the goyim. Well, you did it for money. You're saying you're doing money. So says the Gemara, Amar Ravasi, Ravasi says, this is only going to be if he sold himself once, they redeemed him. He did it a second time, they redeemed him. And then a third time, right? And they redeemed him. Right? Why? He's got a track record. He's got chazakah, or what other people wanted to say. It's rabim. Yeah? What does that mean? Kilu, that it happens, and it's kilu, that it happened many, many times. Yeah, it happened many times. Right? Fine. So, Hanau b'nei b'michse. There was a story, right, of b'michse. Diyaz fezuze me'ovdei kochavim. They used to borrow money from the goyim, and they didn't have money to pay back. So, Ato v'kagar v'lu. So they came, and they took them. You don't have money to pay back. Boom, you're avadim. Ato l'kamid Ravuna. They came in front of Ravuna. Amar lehu, he told them, what am I going to do for you? What can I do? The Tram, we learned in the Mishnah. We learned it. If you're going to come and you're going to sell, right, yourself and your children to Ovdei Kochavim, we don't redeem you. So Amale Rabbi Abba comes and he tells me, but I thought the rabbi taught us that's only can happen 3 times. Amale, he said, Hani mirgal regile davdiachi. These people, they're always doing this. Right? Wow. So he says over here, by the way, that from this halakha we actually learn that if a person borrows money and he doesn't have what to pay, that's also considered that he sold himself to the, meaning the Mishnah was only that you sold yourself to Gogoim. Here, it's even if you borrow money and then you're basically sold because they're coming to collect you for it, it's the same halakha. But he wanted to say that this is their regilim lezeh. Okay, fine, something very similar. There was, right, he comes and he says there was a person that he sold himself to the Ludaim. Now the Ludaim were cannibals. You know what a cannibal is? Cannibal. Yeah, cannibalim. Okay. So they came in front of Rabbi Ami. Amarle, and he said to them, Pirkan, right? He says, please, redeem us. Right? From the top. Amarle, he says, right? So he comes and he says, now what's the reasoning? Mishum kilkula. Why? Because of the kilkul that's going to happen to the children. That they're going to be between the goyim, and then they're going to learn from the actions of the goyim. Here the sakana mita, because of the ludaim. Right? So for sure you have to come and you have to redeem them. So Amrule Rabbanan Rabbi Ami. He says the rabbi is Rabbi Ami, Hay Yisrael Mumarhu. 1 second. But this person's a Yisrael Mumar. That we see him eating nevelot utrefot. Amalu, he says, maybe he's doing a teavon. Amrule, they said, sometimes he has isur and he has a ter in front of him. They're going to purposely leave the ter and eat the isur. Amale, he says, zil, go. Lo kashav kilich. Right? They're not letting me. So you see from here something incredible. Do you guys just realize? That means because the person was a Yisrael Mumar, they didn't redeem him. Meaning they weren't going to redeem him. Why? Because he was a cannibal. They were cannibals of him. But because the person was a Yisrael Mumar, so he said, yeah, maybe it's a Mumar Letavon. He says, no. He said he had heter in front of him, he had Isur in front of him. He left the heter and he ate the Isur. And he was already doing it with Dafka. Once he did, that's it. And therefore, what happened? They're not letting him in freedom. Therefore, Hemachlu ota, or Em Nechalu. Whichever one. Yes.